Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well on this Friday afternoon. Even though we are here enjoying this Masterclass number 19, I can't believe it, there's still a lot going on in the world that we should definitely pay attention to. So I implore you all to use your voices, and I see a lot of people in the chat are throwing in bacon emojis. We're having a good time in here. But, a lot of people are not, unfortunately. So use your voices, continue to demand justice, and together we can definitely make some change in this world. So I hope everyone's well. Hope you're all staying safe. And a big hello to Christina and Dana and Steve and Jennifer and Leandro and Monica and Andrew and everyone else throwing bacon emojis in the chat. I'm excited to be here for Masterclass number 19. Mic sensitivity is too high. Oh no. If anyone else is experiencing some mic sensitivity, where's my I will adjust that for you. So let me know in the chat if you are. Maybe I'll just try to talk a little bit quieter. That could work as well. So what do we have going on today? Today's a little bit of a different masterclass, and we are going to be exploring a brand new feature coming to Adobe XD very soon. I can't tell you exactly when this feature is coming, but it's coming soon. So let's hop over to my screen. And if you follow the Adobe XD account on Twitter, or if you follow me on Twitter, you may have seen this new post right here. So I'm just going to zoom in here and I'm going to play it, and you'll all watch and see what this is all about, and then we're going to explore the actual thing. So it is called Stacks, and Stacks is coming to Adobe XD soon. And as you can tell, it does allow you to add, remove, and rearrange elements inside of XD very simply. And it kind of piggybacks on top of Content-Aware Layout, which we released not too long ago. So there's some cool stuff coming in the next update of Adobe XD. And it's not the only thing that's coming in the next update of XD. I can't show you those things, but more things are coming in the next update. I had to actually go into the code and hide one of those features because it's just like right there out in the open. So we'll see. You won't have to wait long. I'm going to hop over to Adobe XD, and here we go. So we are going to be building out a dashboard in today's class, and I'm going to be showing you how Stacks is going to work. So this is an unreleased version of Adobe XD. It should be pretty bug-free because the release is pretty close. And before we dive into Stacks, I do want to sneak one more thing. It's not a feature that's coming inside of the next version of XD. It's actually a brand new plugin that's coming very soon. I think it's in review, I think. So you might be familiar with the Whiteboard plugin, and that was designed and crafted by one of the teams at Adobe. Fantastic application if you are into collaboration and boards and things like that. But they also are about to release the Mockup plugin, and this is super cool. I have a video ready on YouTube to show off this plugin, but I want to show you all first how this plugin is going to work very quickly, and then we're going to get into Stacks. So this plugin not only allows you to create mockups within Adobe XD very quickly using all of these pre-built elements, but it also gives you templates for desktop and mobile. So you'll see as I select the different devices, we have desktop here, we have mobile over here, and I can scroll down. We have landing pages, we have contact forms, we have sign-in experiences, subscribe experiences, and when I click on any of these, let's go ahead and click on, let's say, I don't know, we'll click on this one here. It looks pretty fancy, or maybe we'll just do the first one, right? We'll click on that one, and XD and this plugin is going to completely build out not just this little part of the landing page, but it gives you this entire landing page that the team has put together. And they've put together all these templates for mobile as well, and they're fantastic, and there's more templates coming soon. But what's really cool about these is you can also combine it with elements. So if I just want to add another button, for example, I can go down here, I can find a button. Where are the buttons? Here's a button here, and pop that over there. And you're going to notice that as I select these various buttons, so Cornell's asking what's the plugin name? It is called Quick Mockup. It's not available just yet. It will be available in the coming days, I believe, or early next week. So as I select the various elements, there's going to be options on the side. So I can change the different style, the different states. I can change the label name, of course, whether it's an icon or a label plus an icon. So there's a lot of cool things you can do. And Chris says, falls off chair. Chris, hang on to that chair because I haven't even gotten to the good part of this plugin yet. And of course, if you are building something on your own, let's say I create an iPhone experience, right? I have all these, I have images I can use, I can bring in here. Works beautifully with responsive resize. I can hop back to elements. I can grab a button, put that in there. So I can build something from scratch on my own, or I can use one of these templates. But here's where things get really exciting. When you select an entire artboard that contains many of these elements, there's a themes button right up here. If you press the themes button, you're given access to a bunch of custom designed themes that the team has worked on. And watch what happens when I simply click on one of these themes. It's going to reskin the entire template. So I can scroll down, I can click on this one, and it does the entire thing. Pink Elegant. And one of my favorites is the Radiance theme. And everyone's asking, where can I get this plugin? You will be able to get it under the plugins manager very soon. It's still in review, but it should be very, very close. And this is so cool. And even templates that you've created from scratch, you can still apply themes to it, right? Of course, I don't have much on this particular artboard, but yeah, I've been playing with this plugin for a few days and I've been blown away. And more themes are coming, more elements are coming, and the chat is just going crazy because this is just an amazing plugin from one of the teams at Adobe. And they have more plugins coming. So they released the whiteboard plugin. Now they released or are releasing quick mockup. And yeah, it's just fantastic. So with that out of the way, I do want to get into Stacks because I know a lot of you are here just to see how Stacks works. Yeah, Mustafa's saying soon. It is soon. It's coming soon. I believe it's in review again. And it's going to be here before you know it. Same with the update. All right, so what we're going to do in this masterclass to show off Stacks is we are going to be building out a dashboard. So here we go. We're going to start by just laying out some elements. And it's not going to be, Christina says, how soon will it be? Very, very soon. The plugin's coming very soon. The update's coming soon. There's a lot of cool stuff coming soon. So I'm going to grab a rectangle. I'm just going to draw out, let's say, a navigation bar. Oops, I missed it. Draw out a navigation bar over to the left, right over here. Yep, the plugin will be free, Arun. And let's go ahead and just set a color. We'll just do like a nice purplish, bluish color right over here to the left, right? Nothing too crazy. And then maybe we'll add another section over here. Maybe this will house activity, for example. And this might be a lighter section. Maybe I'll just go for a little bit of a gray, just like that. And I'll duplicate this. And again, we're just laying out what this dashboard is going to look like. And maybe this will be some sort of a blue. Just like that, right? Nothing too crazy. Fantastic. All right. So we want to start laying out some elements within these sections. Let's start with the activity section. So what we might want to do is maybe over here we might want to display users, for example, and user names, maybe some information that the users might be posting on this particular service. So I'm going to grab a rectangle as I usually do. Maybe I'll just round it out just a little bit like that. This will be housing the actual user profile, which I can hop over to Finder for. And I've got some great looking people in here. I'll grab this guy, pop him in there. That looks pretty good. And we'll give him a username. Let's say this is John. Sophia. And I know you all want to get to the good stuff and see how Stacks actually works in Adobe XD, but you got to start laying things out and making things look pretty good. Maybe I'll just duplicate this down, set an area text, drop this to, let's say, regular, drop the size a touch, and maybe this will just say watching the Adobe XD stream, right? Something like that. So we've got this section here. It's not the greatest looking section, but it's looking pretty good. So what we want to do now is maybe add an additional one. So I'm going to grab some of these elements, and of course you can also use a repeat grid to help you out. But the thing with this section is there are going to be different types of activity. So maybe John might just have a text post, and maybe somebody else might have maybe just an image post, for example. So this will be maybe Mary, and we'll hop over to Finder one more time. We'll grab an image. Oh, these ones are not downloaded, but I'll grab this one right here. And maybe Mary will post an image. And I'll round out the corners a little bit. We will grab a great looking image here from Adobe Stock. I think that was that Unsplash? That was Unsplash. And I'll pop that here. All right, not too worried about the spacing just yet because, well, you'll see why in a moment. Maybe there's another image down here. And this one might be Chris. And let's find an image of Chris. Go into people, that looks like a Chris. And we'll get one more photo. And we'll pop that in there. All right, so we've started to lay out some elements, right? But of course, when you're working with things like this, what if I wanted, Chris's post at the top? Or what if I wanted Mary's post at the top or something like that, right? Here's where things get exciting, especially with stacks. And this is a fairly basic example, but here's what we're gonna do. I wanna first make sure to group these elements, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select all of these elements, and I probably should have done that from the beginning, but I'm just gonna simply group this. I'll just name this John. And I'll grab Mary's elements, I'll group those, and this will be called Mary. And Chris is a great photographer. And I'm gonna name this Chris. So we have all of these elements grouped, right, individually. But we also need to make sure to group all the activity elements that are part of this section. So I'm gonna make sure to select all of these. And this is things we do all the time when we're designing. We group individual elements, we make them components, we also put them into larger groups to keep things organized. So I'm gonna group these, just like that, and this will be called activity. Now, once you have a group or a component, you're going to notice over to the right once the new update arrives. And for anyone just joining, this update is not live yet, but it will be live soon. You'll notice a stack option. And I'm so excited to finally be able to show this on stream. I've been playing around with this for quite a while. So when you press this, XD is going to automatically recognize the orientation of the content. So it's noticing that there are a bunch of elements and a bunch of groups inside of this group that are going down the artboard. So it automatically defined the stack as vertical in this case. But of course, if the content was laid out horizontally, it would know that. Once that's on, that's all you have to do. There are a few things you can do now. When you're inside of a stack, you're going to notice I can individually adjust the spacing between elements. Hey Adam, welcome to your first masterclass. The boop animation is disabled. What? Oh, did I not do a boop animation? Boop. Did that work? I don't know. Did it work? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe the boop animation is broken. It might be broken. So going back to here, we can individually adjust the spacing in between elements, or we can hold down the Shift key and adjust the spacing of all the elements at the same time. So if you needed to, it's like 24 pixels in between all the elements, you can easily do that. But of course, one of the biggest benefits of stacks is I can grab Chris's photo or post and just drag it up. I can drag it to the top if I wanted to. I can drag Mary's to the top, right? Which is super cool. Boop's still not working. That's unfortunate. I will fix that for the next masterclass. I apologize. Is the stack plugin? So the stacks update is going to be available as an actual update or feature within Adobe XD soon. Can't tell you when, but soon. So yeah, stacks just allows you to very quickly rearrange elements. You can also, if you wanted, let's say, another text post, duplicate, and it just tucks it right in there. I can move this up or down just like that, and everything rearranges beautifully. Another cool benefit of this is, remember earlier, I went ahead and when the stack was defined, it was defined as vertical. But maybe you're rearranging this, or maybe you're designing for a different type of experience. Watch what happens when I press horizontal. Of course, this is probably not the best example, but it takes all those elements and it automatically rearranges them horizontally. And I can go back to vertical if I wanted to, right? Which is super nice. Now, if I'm inside here and I want to add additional elements, let's say I want to add some text. I can just hop in here and just add some text. Recent activity, just like that. Did I spell that incorrectly? I did. Activity, just like that. So let's go ahead and set done bar, for example. And as I'm making some of these changes, you're noticing things are moving around really nicely, giving me space to add some of that content. Or if I press return, it's going to bump all that stuff down, right? Let me go ahead and grab one of these and move all this up. Let me make this bold just to make it look a little bit nicer. And if I bump this up, everything's moving really nicely and maintaining that 24 pixels that I set not too long ago. So this is going to save a ton of time when you are designing. Let's go ahead and design a few more elements. Maybe over here to the right, we might want maybe an icon for chat notifications, maybe a profile section. And this is where you're going to start to see how you can nest stacks within other stacks. So let's go ahead and hop into the plugins panel. I'm going to go into icons for design. Let's look up chat, for example, and I'll just grab from the iconic set. That looks pretty good. I'll pop that right about there. And maybe we want a notification bell, or maybe just a bell, whatever you might want to call it. Pascal saying, can you combine the stack with Google Sheets? So what you're able to do, I'm just thinking this out loud because I haven't tried that in particular yet, but you can create a repeat grid. You can use the Google Sheets plugin to bring in content into that repeat grid, ungroup the grid, and then turn it into a stack. So there are probably workarounds with it, and I'm sure plugin developers will update their plugins to work with stacks over time. So we've got notifications here, and then maybe we might want some sort of a profile section. So I'll just drag out this here. That looks pretty good. And I'll go into Finder. I'll grab another person over here. And this will be, let's say, Michelle. There we go. And as you're building out designs that you know that you're going to be working with stacks on, right? You'll probably want to start thinking about the grouping structure as you are building things out. So I definitely want to make sure that the profile photo and the name are grouped together. This will be called profile. And these two items, they're individual, so I can probably leave them as is, but maybe, eventually you might want to rearrange some of these elements within this section. So I'll want to make sure to group the chat icon, the bell, and the profile together. And this will be called actions. I don't know what they're going to be called, but we're going to call them actions. And just like we did before, I can turn on stacks within the properties inspector. And this time it's noticed it's a horizontal stack. So again, it does determine that orientation. Or if I wanted it vertically, I can do that as well, but we do want it horizontally in this case. And once that's enabled, I can just move things around just like that. So if I wanted, the profile over to the left, you can very easily do that. Let's add one more element. Maybe we'll want a search field. So I'll just drag out a search field like this, round out the corners. Probably don't need much of a border there. And let's hop into the plugins panel one more time. Search, and we'll grab an icon. I love that icon with the tiny little stem at the bottom. It looks great. And I'll just type out search. The design of this isn't too fancy. I'd probably change a lot of this, but I want to make sure to cover as much as possible during this masterclass. Right? So now for this one, we probably wouldn't necessarily, move the search bar in between one of these elements. I mean, maybe, depending on the direction of your design. But what we might want to do is maybe swap the position of the search bar, which I'll just drag out a little bit more, and these elements over to the right. So I'm going to go ahead and name this, or the left. That's the direction. And I'll just group all these together, call this upper section, for example, because we're going to get to a bottom section in a second, and I'm going to enable stacks. And once again, it's determined that it's horizontal, and if I needed to, I can very simply swap the position of these two elements. Oops. So we have stacks, stacks and stacks and stacks. It just goes on forever. You can have, I don't know how many stacks you can have inside of stacks, but you can do it, right? And you can continue to swap things out if you need to. All right. So we've got that looking pretty good. We've got a bunch of stacks outlined on our document, but let's get to something a little bit more interesting. Maybe down here, we might want some sort of a planner. So to do that, and this is going to show some interesting benefits of stacks that I haven't shown off just yet. Let's create a section here. Maybe I'll round this out a little bit just to separate that from the background. And what we're going to do is over here, we're going to just type out planner. Maybe I'll set that to all caps, for example. There we go. It looks pretty good. Maybe I'll bold that out. Fancy. Okay. So we've got a planner here, and maybe this is basically the schedule for your morning, your afternoon, and your evening, for example, right? So what I'm going to do is just to save me some time, I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to name this morning. Maybe I'll set this to medium, right? There we go. And down below here, we might want a few tasks. So this one might be, so I'll just round out the corners a little bit, and I'll set this color to, let's say, a nice yellowish orange, almost like a sunset or sunrise if it's in the morning, right? There we go. And maybe this will just say make breakfast. Oops. So we've got make breakfast. And of course you can turn on content aware layout if you wanted to. So if you wanted to, let's say, make sure that spacing is in between these is exactly the same, I can put these into a group. I can call this task. Whoops. Task, there we go. I can turn on padding in this case. And we've got 16 pixels, 24, and I'm going to just shift this over to 23 or 24 just to make sure everything's nicely lined up. Now we can start defining that stack. So what I'm going to do is we've got this make breakfast or task in here. We want additional ones. So I'm going to make sure to group this task inside of a larger one that's just called morning, for example. I can also, if I wanted to, include the header. So I'll group that. I'll call this morning. I'm going to make sure within the properties inspector to turn on stacks. It did define this stack as vertical. And now what I can do is I can simply dive in here and duplicate. It's going to grab that task and nicely tuck it right underneath. Now here's a really cool benefit of stacks. Even though this particular task and this stack is defined vertically, I can go ahead and change this. Meeting with Jan, for example. I should probably capitalize Jan's first letter. So again, even though this is defined vertically, I can grab this and move it horizontally. So it's not completely restricted to the orientation that you have defined. So I can go ahead and add one more. Maybe I want one before the meeting with Jan, maybe somewhere right about here. And I saw Cody mention Animal Crossing. So I'll just go ahead and do that. There we go. So we've got our morning set up, right? We may want an afternoon now. So once you're at this stage, you might want to add another one of these. So I'm going to actually group this first. I'm going to call this, let's just call this day. And now when I have that done, I can add another stack. And I'm going to grab morning and duplicate it. It's going to tuck it right underneath all that stuff. And I'm going to call this, let's say, afternoon. And maybe I'll just want to dive in here and change. Did I miss that one? Yeah, I did. Let's just going to change the color of this to maybe a nice blue, for example. There we go. And I'll change this one as well. There we go. So we've got these two, and I can probably, let's say, record new video on stacks. Maybe I'll do that in the beginning of the afternoon, and record new video on, I can't tell you what that one is, but we do have another big feature coming in this update. And then maybe there's another meeting with Mike, who's probably watching this right now, making sure I don't sneak anything I shouldn't be sneaking. Hi, Mike. Hopefully he's laughing at that. You're going to position this one here. Now, because we have a stack in a stack and a stack and a stack, there's lots of stacks going on. They all kind of talk to each other, right? So what if I wanted to maybe delete this meeting with Jan? What if it's no longer happening? And, traditionally, before I would have to do this, I would have to delete the meeting with Jan. Or you know what, maybe I won't play Animal Crossing. Maybe my day is too busy. I would have to delete the play Animal Crossing object, grab the meeting with Jan, move it up, then grab the afternoon section, move that up. But now, I raised the volume too, but let me do that again. Boop. Everything just moves, not only in that stack, but in the stack of the stack. I don't know, my mind is just blown whenever I've been using this for a while, and I want to get this in your hands. It's going to be in your hands soon, but it's completely changed the way I design, right? It's just fantastic. You don't have to really think about designing. Of course, you have to think about your groups and your stacks, but if you want to add things like that, you just do it, right? If this maybe has 2 lines, you just press enter and hello, or you can enter the time maybe. This is at maybe 6:30 in the morning. I would not wake up at 6:30 in the morning for a meeting or to make breakfast, but can you show that again? Sure. Boop. It's that simple. You just have to select something and delete it or add it, and it just, yeah, Cornell, it's like a dream come true. It's fantastic. Let's go ahead and add another one. I'll just duplicate this. Maybe I'll move this down a little bit. Now, if I would have put this into a group with the background layer, that would have moved as well, right? But I didn't do that. And this will be night. And maybe I'll change this color to, I don't know, pink. And for those just joining, let me just delete some of these just to show you how easy this is. You select an object, you duplicate it, and there you go, right? Answer emails. And I'll just shift this over. Whoops. I'll just shift this over because I can, because you can offset things horizontally within vertical stacks. And you've got this all set up really nicely. And again, if I had this background inside of a larger group with all these elements, that would also move with it, but I haven't set that up yet. But it's that easy to create some sort of a schedule, right? And you may have seen in my tweet that I just posted out not too long ago, you can also create things like Kanban boards. So let me show you how to do that. This is, looking at this from a distance, this is not a very nice looking schedule. It's pretty ugly actually, but we're gonna run with it. So let me, actually before I do that, I want to show you how deep stacks can go. So we've got this section here. We've got our, I'm going to group this. So this is going to be called activity. And we've got all these elements here. So I'll also group this, and I'll just call this, I don't know, dashboard. Then we have our navigation bar over to the right, to the left. I get those mixed up a lot, don't I? Navigation bar. Now, what we can do is we can group all of these elements together and turn all of that into a stack. So I'm going to just grab all these, group them. This will just be called the dashboard. I probably should name the other thing something other than dashboard, but we're going to run with this. I'm going to turn on stacks. It's going to define that stack horizontally. And now, you know, if I wanted to grab the activity section and just move it over to the right, I can do that. I can grab the navigation bar, move that over there. And then again, the stacks within the stacks work really nicely too. Just duplicate or delete or do whatever you need to do. It just works beautifully. I've been blown away by this feature, using it over the last few weeks or months, so I don't know how long it's been in development, but it's great. Pascal is saying, is the padding by default then? So when you enable stack, padding will turn on, but when you create a group, padding will not automatically turn on, right? All right, so let's go ahead and duplicate this artboard, and we're going to create, whoops, undo that. All right, so we've got another artboard over here. Maybe we'll just want to switch this back over. And again, look how easy that is to use. It's just, yeah, everyone in the chat, this is so cool. Amazing face, yep. So let's create like a very simple Kanban board of some sort. I'm going to delete this. I'll just reduce the opacity of this. And if you're not familiar with a Kanban board, it's basically a board with several different columns and a bunch of different cards that you can, you know, put into certain columns. You can move the columns around. And Arun is saying, will the stack remain as default after we change the screen and back again? I'm not 100% sure what that means. So clarify that, and I'll see if I can get back to that. So let's go ahead and create, let's say, we'll just start designing something. So this will be called board name. This is going to be all template for now. And then maybe in here we'll want some sort of a card, right? And this will be maybe the background of the card. And I'll just round out the corners a little bit. I'm all about those rounded corners. And on the inside we might want maybe an image to highlight what exactly this card is, right? Something like that. Again, placeholder for now. And we'll just go project name. This will be regular. I'll probably go for Sophia Pro for this example. We're getting a little bit small, and that Dunbar typeface is definitely going to be a little bit, you know, it's a little bit fancy, so you probably don't want to use it for smaller text. So we've got project name, maybe over to the right here, we might want June, what day is it? I don't even know what day it is, 12th, something like that. Pop this over here, and I'm just starting to lay out some of the, you know, elements on this particular design. Maybe over here we might want some tags. So I'll round this out. Maybe I'll just add in, I think this will be probably a little bit, it's not too bad actually. It's a little bit difficult to see. I probably wouldn't go with that, but for now we will run with that. I'm going to name this tag. I will left justify it and center it here, only because if we add some additional ones and we do have padding enabled, it's going to enlarge from the left, which is exactly what we want. So we've got that. Now for this one, we might want to make sure we can keep all the tags up to date very quickly. So I'll turn this into a component. So I'm going to right click, make component, Command and Control K. You can do it in the properties inspector, the assets panel. And Cody's asking, what would you call this board? It's called a Kanban board. And yeah, Chris has posted it in the chat as well. So I'm going to turn this into a component, and I can make sure that padding is enabled. And that way, if I do duplicate and add another one, I can very easily just start typing and it's going to automatically enlarge. But before I do that, previously I would have to duplicate one over just like that. But now, because I know I'm going to have multiple tags, I can go ahead and group these. I'm going to call these tags just like that. And I'm going to select the tag and, whoops, I have to make sure to turn on stacks. It did define it as horizontal and duplicate. And there we go. I can maybe change the padding to 8. And this will just be called another, whoops, what did I do? What did I do? Oh, I changed the, whoopsie. I moved them around and I edited the master component, which, as it should do, is it updated all of them. There we go. I can duplicate another one and third tag, right? And of course I can grab these, move them around if I needed to, very simply. Cornell is asking, will stacks work with and inside components and states? Absolutely. So I'm using components right now. And of course you can have stacks within a component. I'll probably get a lot deeper with some of that stuff in future masterclasses and definitely in some on-demand videos. But yeah, you can use stacks inside of components as well. So we've got some information here that looks pretty good. I'm going to make sure to select all this. And I want to group this, and this is going to be called card. Now, thinking this through, how I want to build out this Kanban board, I basically want to be able to duplicate not only the cards going down, but also possibly the columns. Can stacks have states? So you can have, it's a bit of a tricky question. So you can have stacks enabled on states, and you can enable that on the master component, but you can't have a state of a stack. I don't know if that answered your question, but if it does, let me know. Or if it doesn't, let me know as well. So what I'm going to do is I have this card. I want to also make sure to group these two elements with the title as well. And this is going to be called board, just like that. I'm going to turn on stacks, which is going to define it vertically. And now with the card selected, I can duplicate and add an additional one. Make sure this is, let's say, 16 pixels in between. So if I do add another one just down the artboard, it will maintain that 16 pixels. Someone's saying, maybe there have a problem. You have 4 tasks with numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, but when you rearrange the task numbers will remain old. Not sure what that is referring to. Maybe clarify that and I'll get back to that as well. All right, so we've got a few additional ones going down the artboard, but of course we might want some additional columns. You might have, going back to the morning, afternoon, evening example from over here, you might have a morning, afternoon, or night, right? So what we can do is we have board selected. We're going to group that, and I'll just name this Kanban. And I'm going to turn on stacks. In this case, it defined it as horizontal, and I can just grab the board and duplicate it, right? Just like that. Let's say 24 pixels. Dana's asking, what is the difference between a stack and a repeat grid? So, those two worlds are kind of closing in on each other. Now, at the moment, stacks, how do I put this? So you will not be able to rearrange cells within a repeat grid when stacks is available. You will be able to include stacks inside of a repeat grid and also use repeat grids inside of stacks. But you won't be able to drag out a repeat grid and then just move cells around, because repeat grids is one of the oldest, if not the oldest feature in Adobe XD. So it needs a bit of update. But yeah, you can stacks and repeat grids. Honestly, they're kind of closing in on each other. So there might be a world where, and this isn't a hint at something that's coming, but it could be interesting, where stacks becomes the new repeat grid, right? I don't know. Could be fun. So we've got 2 boards. We can duplicate to add another one if we wanted to, just like that. We can adjust the spacing of all of them individually by holding down the Shift key, right? But what's cool is you can just dive in here, and if you just didn't want one of them, you can just delete one. But you can also completely change the content. So maybe, for example, this one over here, right? Or maybe this one over, let's go for this one here. Maybe this one will have additional content in it. So let's dive in here, and we might want, in between the tags and the project name, we might want, let's say, some profile pictures. Now, what I didn't do, I probably should have done, is also turn stacks on for the cards. And if I was using components, I'd be able to turn stacks on. You know what? Let's go back. We have time. I'm going to go back, delete all these. We've got our card. I'm going to turn this into a component so I can very easily update one of them. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and turn on a stack, which is going to define vertically. And now I can very easily duplicate a few more down, and I'm going to duplicate a few more across. And you're noticing how simple and how fast we're able to design. I can delete one from over there, delete one from here. And now, when I dive in here into this card, I can grab, let's say, a circle, an ellipse, and draw one out, right? And the card really moves really nicely. I can adjust the spacing if I wanted to. And as I do that, the card below it moves as it should, right? Just like that. So I've got an ellipse. Let's go ahead and create a repeat grid. Bring these in a touch. I'll set the border to white. And then let's just bring in some elements. Let's grab some photos here, drag these in, and bam, there we go. So we can have different sized cards. And as you start designing those, the cards below it just move really nicely. And of course, if this was a horizontal stack, it would move to the side. And if I go ahead and dive in here, let's say maybe the project name is a little bit longer, line number 2. And when I accept that, the card below it, which isn't even in the same component as the one up here, but it's in the same stack, rearranges super nicely. I can grab this card, move it up if I wanted to, grab this, move this up, right? So there's a lot of really interesting things you can do when you start working with stacks. So I'm looking at the chat to see if we have any questions. Thank you, Saman. Munir says, this is awesome. Yeah, I agree. There's so many cool things you can do with stacks. So let's go ahead and just expand on this. Maybe I'll move this, increase this a little bit, move this planner down a touch, right? And maybe up here we might want to include maybe some folders, for example. So I'll grab planner, I'll just move this up a little bit, and this will be called folders. You know what, I don't even have to do that. What I can do is I can select all this information, I can group this, and this will be called modules, right? And Annie's saying, can you convert pre-existing information to a stack later? Absolutely. So all you would have to do, if you have a document from XD29, 28, whatever it might be, just select that information, put it into a group, and turn on stacks. Now, it won't create a stack automatically because that could mess with your content, and we certainly don't want to do that. So yeah, if you just select the information, if it's already in a group, you just enable stacks. If it's not, put into a group, and XD will automatically determine the orientation and do it, right? Which is really super cool. So we've got the planner here. Here we go. And I'm going to make sure that inside of here we have all this information, which is exactly what I want. This is going to be called planner. And I'm going to make sure to turn on stacks for this module. And I can simply grab the planner and duplicate it. Or what I can do is just grab the text tool, for example. Whoops. And let's say this will be folders. Folders. There we go. Makes it a little bit larger. There we go. Perfect. All right. Now we can start adding in some additional elements. And again, you're noticing as I start designing those things, everything below it moves really nicely. So let's go ahead and just move this into place. And I might want to adjust the spacing a little bit. Let's go for 24 pixels just so we have a little bit of breathing room, just like that. Chris is asking, are stacks scrollable individually? Scrolling down a Kanban column. So stacks are not, but hang tight. The scrolling things are in the works. That's all I can say. So we've got that looking pretty good. There we go. And maybe inside of this folder area, we might want, well, a folder icon, possibly. folder just like that. Which icon looks pretty good? There's a lot of nice looking folder icons. Let's go for, I don't know, the iconic one looks pretty fancy. Now, you're noticing what's going on here. Because I added an element into this stack that wasn't part of this group, right? It just added it above it, which is not what we want. So what we can do is we can just group these elements here and just move that in, right? So you got to, pay attention to your grouping just to make sure that you're not throwing things somewhere randomly in a stack. Maybe I will sample this lovely purple color. There we go. And I can go ahead and actually just turn on stacks. This will be called card. I'll just turn on a stack for this one. And I'll call this video scripts. Now, of course, because padding was enabled on this, right? Let me actually undo that. Let me turn off stacks for now. Let me get the content ready to go, and then we can turn on stacks. All right. So this will be called, let's say, video scripts. Reduce the size of that. Whenever you start playing around with a new feature, you gotta get used to it, right? Even having been played around with this for a while, I still catch myself trying to do things the old way. Change this to Sophia Pro. And maybe I'll drop this to medium, drop the size a little bit, because I do want the card to stay this size. So I'm not too concerned about adding a stack just yet. And then maybe I'll want something similar to what I created down here. So I'll actually just grab this information and I'll paste it. There we go. And then maybe just to wrap this up, maybe up at the top, we might want some sort of like a menu of some sort, right? I'll just add a few dots, move them over, and now we have a menu. All right, so our card is looking pretty good, right? And it's part of an overall stack, but we might want some additional cards going over to the right. So in that case, we've got our one card, and I'm going to group that and call this cards, plural. Turn on stack, which is horizontal. Now I can grab the card, duplicate. I can grab two of them if I wanted to, or I can have a few extending off the artboard, adjust the spacing if I needed to. And now we've got a nice looking area. And you can dive in here. And of course, Sophia's back indeed. Like I mentioned earlier with these cards down here, if you make them into components, you can have a lot more flexibility over updating one of them, and then all of them will update nicely. So this one might be example files, right? And what's cool is if I grab, let's say, this cards folder, right? And I duplicate it, you're going to notice it also adjusted and it also affected the stack below it. I can delete one of these and everything works really nicely. I can grab this if I wanted to for whatever reason and just move this up to the top. I can grab this planner, got to get the right folder, and just shift that around. Now, of course, I didn't add folders to this. Here we go. Oops. Add folders in here. Move these over. Oh, it defined it as horizontal. That's not what I wanted. There we go. So now I can grab the entire planner group and just move it, right? This would be very difficult to do previously. Arun says, first time in XD live and it's really great watching live. Well, great to have you, Arun. Thank you for joining. You joined at a good time because we have a lot of really exciting features coming up. And as I mentioned, stacks is not the only feature that's going to be in the next update. We do have some additional things, which I can't talk about just yet. So Paul's saying, are you going to show us stacks in a desktop to mobile view? Oh, that's an interesting idea. So let's say, for example, let me undo some of this stuff. We wanted to start molding the dashboard into maybe a mobile experience. So let me go ahead and create a mobile view just like this. And let me just change the background to this blue color. And what I can do is I can grab, let's say, this stack of cards, which is currently, let me actually grab this one because there's a few extra ones going across the artboard. Let me actually add a few more, right? We have a lot of cards going across. I can grab this, I can copy it, paste it over here, which of course is defined as a horizontal stack, which we just defined a few moments ago. But if I just switch this to vertical, it just works, right? And if you had, you can adjust the spacing out of all of them if you wanted to, right? And if you had, if you were using components, what you would be able to do is dive into this first one, make changes to that one, and it would automatically make changes to all of them, which is super cool. Sunny's asking a quick question about Auto-Animate. How could I make some of the elements animate in different speeds with others? So what you're probably wanting is some sort of a timeline to control the different speeds of different objects across both artboards. A timeline is something the team is definitely exploring. I don't have a timeline, no pun intended, totally intended, on when that could be available. But what you can sort of do in the meantime is if you space objects out differently. So if you put one object a little bit further off the artboard than another one, they will appear to come in at different speeds, right? So if I give you a little bit of an example, let's create an artboard here. It won't be exactly what you want. I would love a timeline or something like that in Adobe XD. But let's say we have a few objects. We have a circle here, right? Put in the middle. Let's just change the color to something we can all see. And I'm going to duplicate this. I'll just have another circle in the center, right? So we have these two objects, and we want them to come into the artboard at sort of different speeds. Again, it's not 100% possible, but what you can do, I'm actually going to group these. What you can do, you can kind of get creative with it. So if I were to simply just move this one here and this one here, right? And I would wire this up, we'll go for a time trigger. And we'll do, you know what, the white is probably not a good example because you can't see it, but I'll change that in a second. Auto-Animate, ease in and out. We'll do, let's say, 1 second. Let me change the white to, I don't know, a black, right? So if you do this, they come in at the same speed, right? However, if you were to take, let's say, the dark circle and just move it off the artboard, you can kind of do something. Did you see it? Hopefully you saw it. And if you're, of course, if you're working with more complex designs, it'll make a little bit more sense. But playing this one more time, you can see that the blue kind of got there a little bit faster than the darker circle. So you can kind of get around it, but yeah, there's no actual timeline at the moment in XD. Again, I would love a timeline if the team is watching. I know they are exploring it, but I don't know when that would be available. All right, so hopefully that answers your question. Chris is saying, I can now see how scrolling in stacks would be powerful. Layered horizontal stacks where you can scroll left. That would be cool. But stay tuned. We do have a lot in the works, so hopefully we will see that soon. All right, so we have this dashboard. Again, it's not a great looking dashboard, but we have a dashboard that we've created, and we can just move objects around just like that. Now I'm going to go through and just kind of tweak the styling of some of this stuff because I don't like the way things are looking. And I probably should have used components for some of these specific features or areas. But you know what? You live and learn, right? Maybe I'll just change this to white. You know what I can do? I can actually just delete that and turn this into a component. That way I can just make my life easy, right? Duplicate this, move this over. And this will be called, what was this one again? Meeting, whoops. That was the master component again, wasn't it? It was the master component. Well, I can just swap it over. There we go. Meeting with Jan. There we go. And this one, delete some of those. I'm going to turn this into a component after I make some changes. I would love to hear from the chat. What other new features would you like to see in Adobe XD in the coming months? Because again, we do have a lot in the works. Again, I cannot tell you what that new feature is. Paul is saying, if not a timeline, timing settings like in Keynote. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, that'd be nice as well. All right, and then this one over here, I'm going to delete this. Set this one to white. And duplicate. Turn this into a component like I did before. Duplicate. Shift that over. And what was this one? Answer more emails. And maybe this one is edit. So you can definitely start to see as I'm playing around with stacks that my designing is just moving so much faster than it was before. Can we have quick review of a new update this month? So Yasser is asking that question. So I've only gone over stacks. There are additional features that will be available in this next update. I can't talk about them just yet, but you won't have to wait long. I cannot tell you when it's going to be released. I don't think I got permission to do that, but you won't have to wait long, and more updates are to come. Right, so you can just see as I'm designing this, for whatever reason, if I wanted to rearrange night, morning, and afternoon, I can easily do that. There we go. So a lot of people are asking about adding videos in Adobe XD. This is something that the team has also been exploring. The tricky thing with videos, aside from where to put that in the priority list, is that whenever you're talking about GIFs or videos that are moving, and some of them are very large in file size, there's always the possibility of affecting performance. So the team wants to make sure that when they do get around to enabling video and GIF support, that it doesn't bog down performance. The team spends a lot of time making sure that XD is super fast and super snappy, so you can just like grab things and move things around, right? Just like that. And stacks is definitely in that category of performance, right? And let's see, what else do we have? Z-axis, so we can have depth. That'd be cool as well. Hover nest effect. Yes, that's one thing I believe the team is actively working on. They're working on a bunch of improvements for components and also states. And one thing that I've spoken to them about is the, having nested hovers, right? So that's something that could be in the works. I believe it is in the works. There's a bunch of things with components and states. So we've covered a lot today. And for anyone just joining, I do want to quickly revisit the plugin that I talked about a little bit earlier, which is the mockup plugin. So let me hop back into the plugins panel, because I do see a few new faces in the chat. And this plugin here, it's called Quick Mockup. It's not available just yet, but eventually you will be able to get it under the Discover Plugins panel. You'll be able to go to Browse, and then under Most Recent, you'll be able to find it. It should be available very soon. But if you hop into the mockup plugin, you can start designing with a bunch of elements. And this is what you'll see by default. You'll just see some very bare bones elements if you just want to, start off by designing something on your own. So if I just grab, let's say, the artboard tool, and I wanted an image, for example. There we go. I can set this maybe as a hero image. Go back to the elements. Let's grab some text. And maybe style 1, that looks pretty good. Maybe this will be H1 header. And we'll add another button. Here we go. And then maybe down here, we might want, maybe I can just duplicate this and just change this to small, for example. Right? And just making some changes on this. So you can definitely use some of these elements to create something of your own, or if you just want to really get started, what you can do is you can go into templates and you can choose something of your own. So let's say I wanted to go for this one, which is Classic Home Mobile. I can just click on that. They're very in-depth templates, so it takes a few seconds to generate. As you can see, it's just super large templates, just goes down and down and down. And I can jump in here and let's say I wanted to change this icon to something different. I can select the icon and I'll change it to, I don't know, this battery icon. Why not, right? And Pravan is saying shifted from Figma to XD and really enjoying. That's great to hear. And if you have any additional feedback that you want to see in XD, let us know. We're always listening. Maybe I'll want to change this one, the styling, to style 2, for example. Swap down here, everything looks pretty good. But again, if you're just joining, the magic hasn't happened yet. Once you've kind of built out your template, whether you're using the elements individually or you're starting with one of the pre-built templates, you can go to the themes option section and then you can choose a different theme just like this, and it's going to automatically reskin the entire thing. And one of my favorites is this radiance theme. And it gives you some placeholder images. Of course, you can swap those out. There you go. You can just keep changing themes if you want to. And you can also click on the same theme to get some different images, just like that. So this plugin is coming soon, probably within the next few days, I would assume, unless there are some issues that come up. But yeah, this is a really cool plugin. I do have a video ready for this plugin, so you'll be able to watch that on YouTube. I'll also tweet about it. But yeah, so this was a fun masterclass. Gave you a preview of Stacks, which is coming soon to Adobe XD. Very soon. Can't tell you when, but soon. And this has been fun. So a big thank you to everyone joining me today, Yasser and Anna and Santhosh and Cody and Munir and Senthil and Dana and Kian and everyone else tuning in. Big thank you to everyone. Get ready for the update. Not only Stacks is coming, but other things as well that I can't wait to talk about. So stay tuned for that. That's going to for me for today. Stick around. We've got Andrew and Nick coming up with office hours in just a few minutes, and I will see you all next week.